Well, okay. Good evening. It's Monday, June 30th, 2025. Welcome to episode 115 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. And before we get too far down the road here, let's see if anybody's in the chat. If maybe you can just let us know if we are coming through loud and clear, because it's been a few weeks since we've been on, and I don't know if we're doing things right here. I don't know if we're speaking to just ourselves or if anybody out there in the internet land can hear us. So if you can just kind of let us know if we're loud and clear.
Are you experiencing some timers? Sometimes you can remember how it works and sometimes you can't.
Yeah. So Cindy says, how old I feel today. Just kidding. Well, that's interesting you say that, because we have a special guest in the house, my lovely wife over here, Rebecca. And this happens to be her birthday. So happy birthday, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Born in 1961. So 61 was a good year.
You could have left off the 1961. You could have said 19 something.
Well, you know, it's something to be proud of, I think, the older you get and you still have your health and, you know, your faculties as far as everything that you came into the world with. So
most of the time.
Yeah, it's something to celebrate, I suppose. But happy birthday.
Thank you. Actually, that was something that I was looking up because growing up, I rarely ran into anybody that had the same birthday as me. I think we actually talked about this in an episode before. I have a cousin and he has the same birthday I do. He is 9 years older than I am. But when I looked up, the most common birthdays are in September or in early October. And June is kind of the middle of the pack, and a lower account on June 30th. Huh. But the rarest, obviously, is February 29th, since it's a leap year day.
Right. I wonder what that's due to. It must be due to certain times of the year. People are more inclined to snuggle than others. So that there has to be something to be said for that. But yeah, that's kind of a little interesting stat. But yeah, thanks for letting us know, Cindy, that we are coming through loud and clear. And I hope things are well with you out there in the middle part of the country. Right now here in Northern California, we're experiencing a little bit of a heat thing. It's not too extreme, but it does get warm in the afternoon when you're out there. It's about 100 degrees right now. So that's triple digits.
Yeah, I can say we had a little bit of an impromptu pool party.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. And that's one of the reasons why we were just a little bit late coming on tonight, because our family stopped over to visit with Rebecca and I and celebrate her birthday a little bit. And we got to see all of our kids, minus Ben. Ben didn't show up, but we got to see all of our other children and all 7 of our grandchildren. So, you know, nice.
Very nice visit.
Yeah, super cool. And the pool's getting some good use. So
yes, they love the pool.
Yeah. Yeah. So good evening, Dean Mullis. Thanks for joining us tonight, man. You know, we had a 2-week hiatus. We left on a Monday. Yeah, we actually left on a Monday morning. And so we didn't get back till the following Tuesday. So we've actually missed 2 weeks in a row, and kind of looking forward to getting back in the saddle tonight and just having a conversation with whoever wants to show up and participate. And yeah, it was a pretty epic trip to Wyoming. And it's where I sought to redeem myself from a past failure 5 years ago at the Bighorn 100-mile ultramarathon. And it's really nice to be able to get away from the homestead and return to an area that I think both Rebecca and I have enjoyed the first time that we were there. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about our adventure and unpack the good, bad, and everything in between. But first things first, Rebecca, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing good. I'm happy that the kids made it. It was kind of an iffy. I got phone calls from them this morning, and they were saying, yeah, we're thinking about coming and visiting, but nobody was definite. So it was kind of a nice surprise, because they were saying, oh, we'll let you know if we're going to make it or not, but they just all showed up. So that was very pleasant.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, that's really just the only thing that I actually want on my birthday, is just to, you know, see and, hey, knock it off, to get a chance to
They're all winding out
Yeah.
and getting out of the pool. And so we have family members that are leaving, and our dog is she's excited.
Yeah, she really likes when kids are here, and she just gets so excited. She's not all that excited to see us, but when new people show up, it's like, it's a big affair. So she's
like a new bowl of candy.
Making a little bit of a racket. But as I was saying, one of the things that I personally don't really care much about anymore is like receiving a bunch of gifts and things on my birthday. It's just more or less just seeing and hearing from the people that really matter to me the most. I think that's gift enough for me. And birthdays, I guess, are kind of for kids. Mm-hmm. There's something to recognize and celebrate. But as far as like the whole monetary gift exchange thing, to me, it's kind of unnecessary. I get more out of just receiving, hey, happy birthday phone call, and hearing from my kids that maybe I haven't heard from, just every day. Right.
Well, and we started with our kids quite a while ago that the best cards that they could give us are ones they made. So a lot of the birthday cards are all homemade, and those are super special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I used to have all of those cards, and it was quite a lot to kind of keep and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why I actually started Facebook, I'm not really on Facebook right now, but I do have a Facebook account, and I can go on that account and I can look at those cards because I took pictures of all of them, and they're just there privately. It's not like they're anything that anybody other than me can see, but I've saved them in that regard. And that was, I guess, one of the reasons why I started with the whole Facebook thing at one point.
Yeah, my closet used to be lined with all of the mm-hmm. cards that they made, and then we decided to paint, and so they all came down. Mm-hmm. So they now are all in a folder. But we have cards from way back when.
Yeah. So as was noted, we were absent for the past 2 weeks, and it was nice to get away. I was very much looking forward to stepping back from the homestead and getting on the road and challenging myself in the race where I had failed previously. And, anytime it seems like you go anywhere, there's always something that pops up, right? And with any road trip, there's always certain challenges. And so about a week before we left, we finally got our motorhome back, which went in from some service right after our last trip, and we had plenty of time to get the things done that needed to be taken, care of. And so it took almost a month for us to get our motorhome back, and I was receiving very poor service from my service advisor. I was kind of having to go around him because he was not returning my phone calls in a prompt way. Mm-hmm. I was requesting, hey, keep me informed of what's going on, and then he totally dropped the ball and I need to pull this up, and we need to get it into the shop. And it's like, dude, it's been there a freaking week and a half, and now I'm waiting on you, and I've got a trip coming up. And so I was just very dissatisfied with the service that we had been provided from that individual. And I had to speak to his boss and tell him, you know what, I don't want this guy on the case anymore. I say, I'll speak directly to you because you've been respectful and responsive, and that's what I'm looking for. But I don't really want to deal with this guy, Mm-hmm. And so he put another person on the case. We get our vehicle back about a week prior to leaving, and then we get on the road. And, I guess it's my fault for not checking the work. But, when you pay for something, you kind of expect that the job's going to be done to a certain standard. And given the fact that really all that I was asking in this particular instance was to have the oil changed on my
generator,
on the generator. And I mean, how hard is that actually? I mean, I can do it myself, but I just chose, okay, it's going in for work. Why don't you it needs an oil change, just handle business. And so we get to our destination after driving all day on Monday evening, halfway across Nevada. And Rebecca was getting ready to fire up the generator to heat us something up for dinner. And it wouldn't run. It
wouldn't start.
Yeah, it would run for about a second, then it would shut itself off. And so upon, long story short, further inspection, I go to check the oil. And as soon as I open the fill port, oil just starts pouring out. And anybody that knows anything about anything knows you don't fill the oil until, to the very top.
Mm-hmm.
And so these generators have a fail-safe mechanism that's kind of a low pressure oil sensor, which also, if it's too little oil, if it's too much oil, it's not going to work. It's going to shut itself down. And in fact, that's what it did. So right now it's back getting repaired. It's apparently good to go. And we're going to be picking it up tomorrow, but it's just emblematic of what we've kind of talked about in previous episodes, where we're just getting frustrated with finding people who can do a decent job.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay for something, you expect it to be done and to be done to a professional level. But I mean, the guy can't even fill the oil in the rig, right?
Yeah. I have to say that cold enchiladas just really are not that good.
No, they were not what we were looking for. But
we do have to say we were parked at an RV park. So for most of the nights we had
electricity,
the ability to plug in and use the generator.
Yeah, I will say this, guys, that, if you have any sort of issues like this in the future, do not hesitate to go directly to that person's supervisor and try to get the correct results, because oftentimes you will. And if you don't get any relief or satisfaction at that stage, you might bring up the fact that you can certainly pursue this at a higher level with the Consumer Affairs Bureau,
mm-hmm.
right? And the bureau that, the Consumer Protection Agency here in California, but within that agency, there's a thing called the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And when you bring that up, they very much do not want that case opened up on their facility. Mm-hmm. They want to know that everything's good. And in fact, it was interesting because I think the morning of all of this happening, I got an email wanting to know how I thought. It was a survey from them wanting to know how my service was. So it's just crazy.
And I would say hold on to that survey until we don't have the RV back.
Right.
Because it went back in. And the guy this was the supervisor who was pretty nice. And he was like, hey, do you want us to wash it while we have it? And we're like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Skane says that she heard our dog and thought it was one of hers at the door. Okay, Ellie Mae, settle down, girl. Yeah, so we also had another issue while we were out there. And this is something we thought would be worth mentioning, because I don't know if any of you might be in the same boat, but it wasn't something that we thought we needed, because we haven't used a credit card in a long time. But Rebecca, why don't you kind of indicate what happened when we showed up to get our rental car? And now this is something that we secured many months in advance. Yeah. We had a reservation. We confirmed it before we actually left California with this place. Hey, is our reservation good? This and that. So
we showed up to pick up the car. They actually had it parked in front, ready to go. They asked me for a credit card and my driver's license. I gave them my driver's license and I gave them my Visa debit card. Right? I figured, you can use it either way. You can use it as a Visa or you can use it as your debit card. Mm-hmm. They would not accept it. I had to have 2 pieces of ID, driver's license, and a credit card. It could not be a /debit card.
Right.
And so I tried everything. We went to the bank to see if I had an active card where they could give me a temporary one and take it back, which we never use it, so it's long since expired. I asked if they would take a cashier's check, and they said no. I said, would you take cash? I will pay you for the car before I even take it. No, this is all we accept. So we ended up not getting a rent-a-car.
Right. And so for us, it wasn't the end of the world because we still had our RV. And it just meant we had to not leave the RV at the park to go to the race, it meant that Rebecca had to actually learn how to drive the thing after.
By the way, I have never driven it before.
Until this past couple of weekends ago. And you did fine, by the way, I will say. She got it where it needed to be and didn't have any issues. And so, who's banging on things?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody wants in.
Yeah. So, Ellie, please.
Did you lock the doors?
I don't know what I did. Can you do me a favor and just take her out and put her in her pen until they leave? Because this isn't going to work out.
Okay.
I'll just keep talking. So you can go grab her, put her out in her pen until they leave. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So where was I? What was I talking about? So yeah, you learned how to drive, which was great. And plus it saved us like $1,000, which nothing wrong with that, but it's just something that you guys might want to think about. We don't really have credit cards any longer because we don't really use credit cards other than our Visa debit card. And there may be other people that are in the same boat. So just something to consider, at least consider confirming with the rental car agency. But yeah, it seems like it's always something. And so I guess just to kind of briefly cover the race, it was 100 miles. It's about 20,000 vertical feet. They give you about 35 hours to do it, in fact. And I took almost all of those 35 hours. I got to about mile 90 and I couldn't really run effectively. I mean, I could still run if I needed to, but I knew that I had plenty of time. So I just walked it, knowing that I could probably walk close to 3 miles per hour to complete the race. And I completed it in 34 hours and 5 minutes. And I feel really, really good about that. It's an awesome thing to challenge yourself in something that you don't know the outcome of. And then when you're successful in that, it's very much, it's very satisfying. And so I'm glad to be back and to, sorry about all the racket, guys, but we got a house full of family and little kids running around. So it is what it is. But I just today had my first run back from this event. I took about 10 days off, but it feels good to be back working out again. And I'm pleased with how things went. I guess just to touch bases on the status of what I've been doing content wise, I haven't really been doing any content because, I've been extremely busy around here. And it just seems to me like there just isn't always enough hours in the day to get the things done. And I actually feel now busier than when I was working full time, oftentimes. And, it's nice. I can adjust my schedule and move things around, whereas I couldn't before. But it's just, there's a lot of things going on around here right now with harvest time and everything. And it just hasn't been a priority for me to try to create content and take the time to film and edit things. So it's just a lot easier sometimes just to go out and get the work done. And then I just haven't been that motivated to do any real content creation in that regard. So if that's something you're looking forward to, I apologize, but I will get back to it at some point when things kind of slow down around here. I think one of the reasons why I was giving this some thought about, why is it now that things are more busier than they seemingly have ever been? It makes me question and wonder why I was able to do what I was able to do when I was working full time. But I think it's because, I no longer have a structured work routine. So it's easier for me with more free time to take on additional projects, engage in different hobbies and things that I want to do, or other commitments that may come up. And so there's still a full day that I have but it just seems like I'm fitting more stuff in it. Kind of like when you have a small house, you don't wind up putting a bunch of stuff in it, but the bigger your house is and the more cabinets you have, the more places you have to stash things. And it's just kind of much in the same way. But anyhow, I hope you guys are in the thick of harvest season. I will say that we certainly are. And so much to the point where we've got a kitchen full of produce right now. And Rebecca is constantly scrambling and working to try to manage the space. We've got tomatoes all over the counter. There's onions that are in the kitchen that are drying. There's, all kinds of different things that are happening right now. And so, you going to make it?
No.
Struggling over there.
I know. I'm trying to figure out how things work.
It's a piece of technology that costs like $10 off Amazon. You should be able to outsmart it.
Yeah. Those are the most difficult ones.
You got that? Cool.
As a matter of fact, I have one of those spiral things that hold your eggs, like container. I don't know what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And to make space on my counter, they're actually lined with onions right now and not eggs.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm assuming you guys are, gardening as well. Many of you that might be listening. And, I don't think no matter where you are, whether you're in zone 6 or zone 9 or zone whatever, it's that time of year where the summer garden is starting to pop and things are coming into season to the point where you're going to be harvesting. And we are in the thick of it right now.
We are in the thick of it. I have potatoes and tomatoes and onions. Carrots are coming up soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and,
we just pulled the potatoes this morning, so we're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to process that. But what is the plan that you have currently for the tomatoes that are sitting in there? Now, of course, there's a ton more that are getting ready to be harvested, in the coming days. But from what you've harvested in the haul that you already have in there, what is your plan with those?
So most of the tomatoes are actually going to be canned. And the beauty of having some of the small onions is because I can do some of the canned tomatoes Italian style. So I can put garlic and onion and bell pepper in. We also have a lot of peppers coming up. And I am going to can those because, obviously I use those for enchiladas, some of my soups.
So you're going to be adding those to the tomatoes, in other words, canning those.
They can, but they are going to be canned by themselves. Like, you open up a can of green chilies to add to your enchilada sauce.
Right.
So I'm going to can those so that I have those on hand as opposed to purchasing them in the store.
Sure. We were going to try something a little different this year with the onions, and I'm not sure how many of them we're going to do, but Rebecca was looking it up and talking about maybe layering them with the sawdust, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because one of the problems that, you have when you have produce like that and you're storing it, trying to do it long term, when you have onions or potatoes that are touching one another, they can start to make others funky if one starts to go bad. And so it's really good if you can layer them in whatever you're storing them in where they're not touching, and then make sure that either they have really good ventilation and or, as you were suggesting, maybe doing is putting in with
you put them in with the sawdust, which will help take care of some of the moisture.
Right. Take care of some of the moisture, but it will also kind of maybe reduce some of the oxygen that's getting to them, because what's going to cause them to degrade is there's a couple of different things that's going to cause them to degrade. It's one, temperature. If you can put them in 50 to 60 degree temperature, they're going to last for a long, long time. So temperature, you're going to want to keep them out of sunlight, daylight. You can keep them in a dark, cool, dark place. And yeah, if you can minimize the amount of oxygen that's coming in contact with them, then that's going to, again, retard the degradation of the fruit or the vegetable that you're trying to store.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going to play around with that maybe. And then also I looked at, and I might run kind of like a little experiment. I don't know. I don't want to do too much, but it would be kind of good to compare storing some in the sawdust. And then we'll do some maybe in some of the wood ash. So, the ash that is the residual from internal, like a combustion fire,
Mm-hmm.
just the white ash, that would serve the same function. And I actually kind of saw somebody mentioning that, and I'm going to look into it and see if we can maybe do that as well.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys are doing anything like that, or have experimented with any of that sort of thing. But if you have, let us know. Drop a comment in the comment section here in this live, or if you're listening to this on the rebroadcast, certainly reach out and tell us your experience. Let us know what's worked for you, because we're not saying that we're experts here with regard to storing some of these things. I mean, it works.
Mm-hmm.
But, we always wind up with a bit of spoilage as well, which that would be preferable that we didn't lose any of the stuff that we spent the time to grow. But
yeah, we did a pretty good job making it through most of the onions.
Uh-huh. Let's see. DHT says, I'll be harvesting garlic this week sometime. Says yours looked great. Everything is doing good, but it's still a bit early here. We had a frost on June 2nd. Yeah, we, things are probably going to be a lot earlier for us here in this zone. And we can't really I can't really get into July. It's like first part of June, I'm going to be pulling garlic in most cases, sometimes even earlier than that, just depending on the weather and such. But yeah, it's we got a pretty good crop of garlic and good crop of onion.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a bunch of other things out there right now that are going to require some further attention for me to go out and just make sure I'm staying on top of, because, otherwise I'll be feeding it to the pigs and chickens. And that's not why exactly I grew it.
But they love it.
Yeah, they do. And it's nice to have something to, throw your stuff that goes bad to. But again, I didn't grow squash and everything else to feed my chickens and pigs.
So that was one of the problems with us being gone for so long. The squash was coming in as we were leaving. So our daughter was able to harvest some of it, but some of it got very, very large.
Yeah, it gets a little long in the tooth. Good evening, Bill Zegley, Lewisburg, Tennessee, in the house. So nice to see you, and thanks for joining us.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah, the potatoes that I harvested this morning, I planted those last fall, and I planted them in the fall with the intent that I was going to get a spring harvest out of them. However, sometime during the winter, prior to the year turning over, we wound up getting a couple of hard frosts, and it killed back the foliage, and so that basically ended that growth period. But the real nice thing about potatoes is you can just leave them in the ground. And so long as you give them some water the following, spring and into, now that we're trending into summer, they'll just keep coming. And so that was planted last fall, and now I'm getting essentially my summer harvest for my potatoes. And so we'll have to figure out what we're doing for those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Much like the garlic that you grow, the potatoes are the same. You can be very self-reliant with those two crops, because once you have them, you kind of have them, and you just need to make sure you're keeping back any ample amount of seed stock so that you don't have to go out and buy that stuff. Because man, it's expensive if you've ever priced out recently, getting some garlic, some good organic garlic from a nice nursery.
I would say the garlic lasts a lot better than the potatoes do.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it does. There's less water in them,
Mm-hmm.
and then the paper and such, it's a better storage medium. Whereas the potatoes, they're not going to last nearly as long. They're going to wrinkle up and get weird and they go funky on you and whatnot. But again, great to hang on to that seed stock because that stuff's expensive. Yeah, scapes are cool with your hard neck garlic, DHT. We had a few scapes this year. I didn't really even mess with them. I just let them kind of go. But those are great to cook and to do stuff with, garlic scapes. Let's see where we're at. Yeah. So mentioning the tomato, some fun facts about the tomato. It some people refer to it as a vegetable, but it's actually also a fruit. It's botanically a fruit, but it's legally classified as a vegetable in the United States by the Supreme Court. And they did so in 1893 for tariff purposes. So, bet you didn't know that.
My sister used to eat tomatoes like they were an apple. So, kind of.
You knew that, though, that it was like, so you say that it was a...
Well, not that I actually knew that, but I had looked it up for a while, so I knew that it was referred to as a fruit.
Right. Yeah, no, it definitely is, but it's also technically classified legally in the United States as a vegetable. And there are over, again, you may not have known this, but there are over 10,000 different cultivars ranging in size from the cherry tomato to the beefsteak, with a variety of different colors ranging from red, yellow, purple, and green, with all different kinds of shapes.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
I didn't know there were that many.
Right.
I have seen them in the variety of different colors.
Sure.
And I have heard of a cherry tomato, and I've heard of a beefsteak tomato, and a few others in there. But
right. Here's another
not that many.
Another fun fact of tomatoes, because tomatoes are fun, aren't they? Fun as tomatoes, as
you
they
know
say.
What? They're a lot more fun when you don't reach in to pick one and your fingers squish into the middle.
Yeah. So this other fun fact, maybe you didn't know, but cooking increases the lycopene bioavailability. So making sauces and pastas more nutritious than raw tomatoes. And they are best stored at room temperature because refrigeration dulls the taste.
Oh, so that's why you made that comment.
I did make that comment.
You didn't know that until you just read that.
Well, how could I have not known that if I made that comment already?
No, I mean, not this very, but I mean, within the last couple of weeks or so, you.
Well, yeah, I did my research.
Okay.
I knew that at the time I said it, but okay. Yeah.
It's not a lifelong knowledge that you've had.
See, here's the thing about knowledge. There's a lot of things we don't know, and we don't know it until we actually do the research and we go, oh, I didn't know that. Now I know.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that great?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've also got, oh man, I got a ton of carrots out there that need to be pulled. My beds with the root vegetables in them are just like, I got stuff in there that's getting long, and beets, right? So there's going to be a lot of preservation effort on your part, I think.
Another thing that tastes like dirt.
Yeah, but see, that's the beautiful part. You don't have to eat it. I do. And I love it.
No, you don't have to. You want to.
I do, because it's so good for you as well. Right? You got to eat things that are good for you, Rebecca. You got to branch out and eat things that aren't, just hot dogs and hamburgers.
I don't eat hot dogs.
Okay, so hamburgers.
Well, I like hamburgers. So.
Okay.
I can't argue with that one.
Yeah. So we also today, Rebecca did this, but we've scheduled the pigs for graduation day.
Yes.
And so we're looking at another couple of less than 2 months, and they'll be getting processed out. But we like to get those processed anywhere from 5.5 to 6 months of age. And Yeah, I think that'll be a good window to do that. We actually have a boar out there, which I didn't realize until he started growing nuts on the back end of him. I thought he was castrated, but apparently he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got one that's going to be a little bit stronger taste, but who cares if you're grinding them up and making sausage, right? What are we going to do with them? You want pork chops? Is that how you want those?
I don't want pork chops. I'm terrible at cooking pork chops.
Well,
I can honestly admit that my pork chops never come out juicy. They're always dry.
well, if you could cook them where they weren't juicy, would you like pork chops, or is it just because you don't know how to cook them?
I've tried cooking them a variety of different ways.
So you want to just grind it up?
I don't mind getting some pork chops, but I don't like opening a box and the majority of it in there is pork chops.
Okay. Well, we can get whatever we want. It's custom kill, and we can tell them what we want. We can specify.
Yeah, a little less on the pork chop side.
Okay. Well, we'll tell. Also, today we ordered chickens, and I really wanted to go with the Novagen Browns, but we've had a lot of success with those over the past number of years, and they've been good chickens for us here. They're very productive. But the problem is that getting those right now is, I mean, there's nothing available all the way through the end of the year. And so we've decided to go a different way and get a couple of different varieties, one being the Barred Rock. And not a huge fan of like dual purpose birds or whatnot, but these were available on the same date, and, we'll integrate them in with the other chickens that we're going to get. And the other are white Novagens, which they're kind of like a Leghorn, but they are specifically bred. They are a hybrid, much like the Novagen Brown that was developed in France. And they're very productive and prolific egg layer. Probably not along the same lines as far as numbers wise as the Novagen Brown, but the Novagen White will be a good producer for us. And their feed conversion ratio, from what I've read, is one of the best, where you don't have to dump a lot into them for them to crank out, a very productive, nutritious. Yeah, they're good foragers. There's a lot to like about these birds: heat tolerance, cold tolerance, temperament. It is what it is. Chickens are going to peck each other and fight and find out the pecking order and stuff. So I'm not really worried about it, because I'm not going to be in there with them, other than just going in to do stuff in the chicken yard. They're going to have to flesh it out.
You ought to go in and socialize with them. They love apple.
That's your job. I'm not stopping you.
I went in the other day.
Yeah. Did you go socialize with them?
I did.
Well,
with
did you take them some apple?
Little, yeah, I did.
That's awesome.
They came and they took it from my hand and ran around.
Yeah,
they were excited.
I don't do that. That's your job. So I ordered 50 today, and we're probably going to keep 25 or so, and I want to be able to get those online, because the old girls are going to be laying up on us here
they're looking kind of scraggly
come fall,
but they're still laying eggs.
Well, I know, but it's the time to lay eggs, but they're going to lay up here. This winter's going to be a hard layup. I
just meant compared to what they look like.
Yeah, they look bad. They do not look great, but they're old. They're getting old.
Our grandson, when he visits, he always wants to pet one of the chickens, and so I need to kind of go scoop one up and hold it. And there's one, it's missing feathers off of her backside, and she just looks really scraggly.
Yeah.
And he cracked me up because he says, "Yeah, not that one." And pointed to the one that she looks terrible.
Yeah, she looks horrid, man. That's the one I call pastrami head. She's got that really weird comb. Yeah. So Lorenzo Bentley in the house says, "Thank you so much for a great channel." Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, thank you.
Glad that you're getting some benefit from what we do here. Sometimes it's more beneficial than others. But we just try to share some of the things that we do here on the property. And again, I apologize if I've been a little bit delinquent in that as of late, but we'll get back to it. Just real busy right now, but thanks. That's super good, man. Welcome to the chat for tonight. we'll see if we can
Absolutely.
entertain and educate, because that's our job here, is to just, have a little fun, and then to provide some perspective on some of the things that are going on, not only here on our homestead, but just, kicking some ideas around.
You'd be happy to know I didn't crash that RV coming down the hill.
I'm glad that you didn't crash that RV. Yeah.
We wouldn't have had a way to get home.
Yeah, it would have made it a little bit difficult, but yeah, good job. So I had a quote for this week. Not really a liberal or conservative thing or whatever, but it's just a quote of the week. And here is that quote. There was a time when Congress used to engage in serious debate and occasionally take tough stands opposing the alleged imperatives of national security. Over the last 3 decades, however, and particularly since 9/11, it has increasingly abdicated its powers and transferred them to the executive branch. And that comes from one Mike Lofgren, who wrote a book called The Deep State: The Fall of the Constitution and the Rise of the Shadow Government. And this was a Republican lawmaker who was in Washington for a number of years. I'm, kind of unfamiliar, but just looking at who wrote this and doing a little bit of cursory research, that's his story. But that, if you think about that quote, it's very true, right? I mean, it's supposed to be co-equal branches of government that we have. And, far too frequently over the years, it seems though, the certain branches of government are being rendered ineffective or not really equal. When, it's not supposed to be that you just have a president who writes all these executive orders. And now this happens on both sides of the aisle. This happens, obviously with Trump. He's written a tremendous amount of executive orders. And then it's happened with Biden, and it's happened with Bush, and it's happened with every previous president. And it's really not supposed to be that way. But unfortunately now it is. And so I think that quote, has a lot of merit, and it has, unfortunately a lot of truth in it. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I fully agree. I think that we have a government that either leans one way real hard or leans the other way really hard, instead of where am I going with this? Taking in I guess leaving out their judgments and just listening to what is being presented, and not taking a bias for it, but doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, I brought that quote up because there's some things that I wanted to kind of talk about from the standpoint of just observations politically that, are taking place in the country. And I guess we can talk about that a little bit now, move into that portion of the discussion. But I think that it's hard to argue that powerful special interests aren't controlling the decisions by our elected representatives from the president on down. And there's been a lot of talk as of late by a lot of people out there about some of those entities. One of those entities is AIPAC. And AIPAC, do you know what that stands for, Rebecca? It's an acronym.
Right. Only from what I can read right here, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Okay, so you just learned something, right? So what you see in there is you see American and Israel. So it's kind of like this, hey, this is an American thing, but it's also an Israeli thing. And I think what it is actually is it's more about Israel than it's about American. But it's got that American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So conceivably, by looking at that, you would think that it claims to serve both American and Israeli interests. And one of the ways that they kind of get around this is that they receive their funding from private U.S. donations. And it's an organization or a political action committee that is exempt from registering under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So anytime a foreign entity is seeking, to be lobbying our government, for their own interest, they have to register under what's called the FARA Act, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Well, this particular entity, APAC, is exempt from that.
Israel gets a skirt around it.
APAC gets to skirt around it. And so, did you know? Here's a did you know? Maybe another did you know for tonight. Did you know who the top donor to Trump's campaign in the last election cycle was? Who the top donors were?
I do not know who the top donors are.
Right.
Or were.
Right. Well, I looked up the top 5, and the one that comes to the top is Elon Musk. He donated about $288 million to Donald Trump's campaign.
I take that back. I did know that Elon donated.
Okay.
But.
Yeah. The person underneath that, I don't remember that person's name, but he donated significant millions as well. But the person who's third in line is a lady named Miriam Adelson, and she's very pro-Israel, and she's very much associated with the causes of the state of Israel. And so I guess, it's interesting to me because, the policy positions that Trump has made a priority. One of the things that he did very early on in his administration was rooting out anti-Semitism. That's a big topic of discussion now. Anti-Semitism. You don't want to be an anti-Semite, somebody who is against Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think I'm against anti-Semitism. Right. I think most people kind of are, right, against being anti a particular whatever for whatever reason. But I think it's worth questioning, why there's this, at least I have the question, wow, I never really knew that anti-Semitism was that big of an issue. But, he's Trump, I'm referring to, has had numerous executive orders to combat anti-Semitism. He's written at least 2 that I'm aware of. And he's directed all of his agency heads to prioritize the language written into policy, which is specifically designed to target anti-Semitism. So if you go to the Department of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy's agency that he heads now, it's written right into their core mission. Same at the Pentagon, same at the Department of Education, same at all of these different agencies. They've recently put in that this is a priority. And I just find that that's very interesting. And so, I said, well, gee, is it really that big of an issue? I mean, they've established a multi-agency task force to combat anti-Semitism. And, now if this was really a problem, I'd say that's great. We need to stop people from being targeted for whatever reason, racial or, I'm not a fan of that, but I did not know it was a real big problem. Yeah, I didn't really know it was it wasn't on my radar of things that
nor on.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like Make America Great Again, just targeting something like that, but who's to know? So I actually looked into it. As usual, I did some digging and I pulled up some recent statistics that's available right from the FBI's own hate crime statistics. And the following list outlines the top 10 ethnic or racial groups targeted by hate crimes in the United States, ranked by the number of victims or incidents. So this is coming right from the FBI, Rebecca. And I'm going to give you the starting list with the most incidents to the least. Now, these are the ethnic groups or whatnot that are being targeted the most. And so this is at the top of the list, Black or African American. Didn't realize, that was a thing. I'm not being targeted personally, but I mean, it happens, I guess. But that's what the FBI's crime statistic report is it Black and African American. Second on the list is Hispanic or Latino. Third on the list is white. So how about that? How you feeling about that? Are you being
I'm not being targeted.
okay? Not to say that it doesn't happen. I mean, obviously, this is right from their playbook. The next on the list is Asian people. Now you have to go halfway down on the list of 10. Coming in hot at number 5 is Jewish people. Right?
Huh.
Yeah. So it's not like they're at the top of the list where this is something that needs to be put in there. I mean, they should be putting something in there for Whitey.
Yeah.
Right? They should be protecting Whitey and you know, the Asians and the blacks
But
and
we're the evil people.
Are you?
No,
Okay.
but we're perceived that way,
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay. So number 6 is American Indian or Alaska Native. Number 7, multiracial groups. I guess that would be me, since I'm a half-breed. Number 8, Asian/Pacific Islander. 9, Muslim as an ethnic or religious group. And 10, Sikh. So, you know, I don't know. It's just interesting is all I'm saying. It's just interesting to me. I tend to look into things. I don't just hear what I hear. And then I try to say, well, follow the money. Why are things happening?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's a reason why Trump said one thing and now he's doing another. Who's in it? Who's in his ear? Who's his closest advisors who are telling him this is the direction you need to go? Because I'm almost certain that that's probably not his priority, right?
I would guess that that's not his priority.
He's into building buildings. He's into making deals. He's being told, hey, this is something we want you to do. But look who's donating to his campaign.
Yeah, I agree that unfortunately, I don't know why he's not able to stand up to that, other than they've donated a lot of money to his campaign. But
yeah, money makes the world go round. I mean, it's very should be very obvious to anybody that's paying a half of most people are just kind of NPCs, they just hear something and then they just like, oh, I'll just spout it off and not really think of why it's happening or, trying to like reason like what is really going on here. And I'm not saying I have any idea what's really going on. I just have a lot of questions that are unanswered because, when somebody says something, you think, okay, I'd like to believe you. And then you watch what they do from the standpoint of their actions. And then you like question, like, why are you doing that? And that's kind of where I am with our president, with certain things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Skanes says she's privileged. Yeah, I'm privileged too, because I'm half white. I'm half black. So I'm very privileged.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Were you going to say something before I said something?
Yeah, it's a passing phase. So.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing I was, I guess, pretty stoked on with Trump was all of the promises he made regarding being a non-interventionist, not starting any new wars. And, he had stated in other conflicts, and I'm referring to, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where he was saying that America, it's got this big, beautiful ocean dividing us. It's got this big, beautiful ocean. It's not really even our problem. That's happening over there. We got this big, beautiful ocean. They should be doing, they should be doing this and they should be funding their own whatever. And then I started to see what he's doing with Israel. And I'm thinking, man, there's a big fucking ocean in between us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a different tone that's being set right now. And
there's something going on there because I would agree. It's like this is their fight that they picked, and they should fight it. Fight it out. May the best man win. But hey, we're going to stay out of it. It's none of our business.
Yeah, I understand the implications of having an ally in that region of the world. I understand the importance of having such an ally Just geopolitically being able to say, hey, we can come over there and use your airspace. We can do certain things in that theater if we so need to do so. But I don't know if it's worth it, man. I don't know if it's worth it.
I don't think it's worth it. I think that we've got so much going on in our own country that needs to be addressed and taken care of, that needs to be handled first.
Right. I think this is what I'm kind of referring to. Maybe some of you people don't have memories that are too short, and you might remember something like this.
We should have never gone into the Middle East. Under my leadership, we will turn the page forever on those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. We're rebuilding our military stronger than ever before, and we are not going to deplete it again on stupid, senseless, endless wars. World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists and the deep state. I am the president who delivers peace. I was the first president in decades who didn't start a war. And the worst, most incompetent, most corrupt president in history is going to drag us into World War III. And this horrible, horrible president is dragging us toward World War III. We're going to be in World War III soon. Because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran. Large sections of the Middle East. I mean, look at the death and destruction that's taken place. And none of this would have happened if I were president. Our opponents join with warmongers and neocons to wage endless wars, these wars that never end. Together we're fighting to secure our borders, end the endless foreign wars, and defend the working people of America. But the Muslim and Arab voters in Michigan and across the country want a stop to the endless wars and a return to peace in the Middle East. That's all they want. Speaking of World War III, I'll keep you out of World War III. What would happen if we had a war? We won't, with me, but you will have World War III, I believe, without me, but we won't have. I will be sure that World War III will not happen. I'm the only one can say it won't happen. But I stand here today, and I'm the only candidate who can make this promise. I will prevent, and very easily, World War III, very easily.
You know, the thing about that is that I believed him. I thought, man, he's different here. He's different.
I believed him too, and I think that he went in with a good heart, and figuring he could negotiate and settle everything, and it's not turning out that way.
Well, here's the thing with this whole strike that they did, you know, in the dark of night kind of thing, where they just went over there and did it, and then as the planes were returning home, hey, you know, by the way, we did this, and here's the pictures. You know, I'm not saying that we should have a president who is unwilling to engage in military action when necessary, but I do question whether or not what Trump did was necessary. I would say that we'll never probably know the answer to that question. But ask yourself this: would military strikes like the one that struck Iran's nuclear facilities be done to a more capable nation? So take, for instance, China. If China was saying incendiary things or posing a threat, which they pose a threat, make no mistake. If Russia was saying this, if India or Pakistan or North Korea, any of the more capable nations that also have nuclear weapons, would we have done what just took place? Do you think Trump would have done that? Or is this just another continuation of what George Bush did to Iraq, in a sense? I mean, they're a fucking ragtag bunch of whatnots. They can't stand up to the United States military. Well, but isn't it interesting that this was done to a country that really was not in a position to do anything about it. What about those other countries? Would this have happened? Would we have taken a strike at another nuclear armed nation, or one that was more capable, or one that was more of a threat?
Well, see, that's where I think is the answer, is because they probably have an equal chance of fighting back.
Yes. And many of the countries that I just listed are not our allies and are much bigger threat to the United States than Iran. If you really want to think about it. So question really who is in Trump's ear, because, it really hasn't been explained too clearly how an overnight bombing raid in the Middle East is in America's interest. How is that making America great again?
Right. That I have not a clue.
It's just a question. It's a question that I have, is all. And I'm not saying that I have the answer. I'm not saying that what Trump did was wrong, because I don't know everything that they know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I do know that the military industrial complex is a big part of what takes place in American geopolitical politics. They have a vested interest in promoting this boogeyman, whether it's this country or that country. And there's always going to be this somebody worth picking on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just an interesting thing from the non-interventionist president that said, I'm going to negotiate. Well, I guess you negotiated long enough, and then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, we're doing this.
Well, you hear him say, I gave them their 60 days or whatever
Right.
it was. I don't know if it was exactly that. And
without an authorization from Congress, because anytime you go into war, the War Powers Act, you need the congressional authorization in which to do that, because they have the purse strings. So you see how things, going back to that quote where I started talking about how things are not how they're supposed to be, they're out of balance.
mm-hmm.
Right. And whether it's Donald Trump, and again, I voted for the guy. I'm not saying that I'm off the Trump train. If I was to compare Donald Trump to the last guy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give him an A. He's going to get an A+. If it was between him and Kamala or him and Biden and what that was all about.
Oh, absolutely. If you're comparing those two, yeah.
Right. But I'm not comparing that. I'm comparing it against what he said and what he's doing. And
So you're comparing it with Trump, the campaign Trump, and Trump, the President Trump.
Well, he was president while he was campaigning, saying those things. He had already been president.
Well, this isn't some guy. But he's pushing out this agenda. And now that he is president again.
And he's had people that have millions of dollars contributing to his campaign saying, this is what you need to pay us back for. So just follow the money. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Lorenzo Beatty says, great conversation. When the powers that be decide that the agenda is people start talking. This is the journey that has been spoken about in the Bible. Yeah, well, I appreciate you listening tonight and joining us and joining in on the conversation. And you are correct, Dean Mullis, when you say that Congress has not authorized a war since World War II. It's true, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's really true. Well, wait a minute. I think actually they did get some authorization for the Gulf War. The original invasion with the Gulf War, there was pretty big unanimous consent at that time after 9/11. Bush kind of had almost like a mandate where there was a lot of support for hey, we're going to go in and we're going to get these terrorists, get these weapons of mass destruction. But I don't know, man. Whether it's Syria, whether it's Libya, whether it's all these little skirmishes where we're going in, basically creating a military action, which could be considered an act of war. If somebody did that to us, what the fuck you think it would be called? They come bombing their way into our country. Would that be considered war? Oh, we're at war. Hey, they dropped bombs here in the United States. We're very insulated from any of that shit, and I'm not saying that, Israel, I don't empathize with those people, because I do. These people of Gaza that are being bombed. I mean, it's like hell over there, man. Their entire place has just been decimated. And it's been done so by the support of this country. When you think about it, Israel's not doing any of that shit completely on their own. They're being green lighted. They're saying, okay, well, we'll just sit back over here and you can, we'll kick you some more military aid and we'll test out this weaponry and we'll see how it goes, but we're going to kind of stay distant. And the only reason we got going with this bombing raid recently was because they didn't have the fucking planes to carry 30,000-pound bombs. We have those. And so, boop, they come out of Missouri, which it's interesting, guys. You should look and see where all of this stuff's at, because if shit ever goes down, the middle of the country, man, it's going to be in a fallout zone. And I'm not trying to get apocalyptic here with nuclear talks or whatever, but a lot of that shit is in silos, a lot of our military, nuclear, stuff like that. And so that's where those targets are going to be coming. There's going to be a lot of fallout in the Midwest. There's going to be a lot of like targets in the Midwest. All those places you think are flyover countries, flyover states, I should say. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of the missile silos are. They're all over the country, but about the safest place you could be would be in Maine. Kansas, not so much. Sorry to say. Montana, not so much. Places like that. Missouri, you got your problems. No, seriously. I mean, that's where they put this stuff. So it's just kind of something to just be informed of. It's nothing to be losing sleep over, because what are you going to do? It's not anything you can do anything about.
Build a bomb shelter.
Yeah, I guess. Bill Zegley says, well, Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism throughout the world. So many countries in Africa are supplied by them, also in South America. So take them major supplier in money and munitions. Yeah, I'm not saying that I disagree with any of that. Right? Because I don't know. Yeah, Hamas and Hezbollah and all these little terrorist proxies. But I also think that a lot of these other adversaries that we have, China and Russia, they know what's going on. They're funding a lot of this stuff. They're gonna make sure that they have their supply lines for certain things. So it's a big global, chess game. And I don't have the answers. I don't know if Trump has the answers. He's being told, hey, this is what the threat is, just like every president that comes in. Here's the threat. Here's the boogeyman. This is what we need to do.
Right. I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, this is what we would do. But I am sure that if we were to get into office, we would find out that there is a lot more.
100%.
Way more than what we know or could even perceive.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm not going to sit here and try to say, well, this is what you should do and blah, 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 blah. I just have questions. That's all. And I'm bringing them up here in this live stream because, well, why not talk about them? We have the First Amendment. Trump's been proclaiming, I guess, kind of like an end to this hostility, saying it was a 12-day war and this and that. That may prove to be the case. But do you think that decision to involve us further to U.S., you think that that's going to in any way cause us a problem down the road? I mean, again, this isn't anything we're going to know until it happens, but it's certainly worth considering that we've got millions of people that came here from adversarial countries, whether that be in Southern or Eastern Africa, or many, many different places that have an ideology that doesn't comport with the way we conduct our lives here in this free and open society.
Yeah, I was just listening today. Actually, I haven't really listened to too much politics in the last couple of weeks, but today I was listening to them talk about the focus now again being on removing the illegal immigrants in the country, with the exception of, or not an exception, but to take a better look at the folks who have been doing the agricultural work and the construction and everything else, and kind of allowing them to continue providing they don't have any criminal background.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, because, you know, if you're here contributing to the society, then you are of value. And I think that there's a lot of people who've been here for a long time that didn't come through the right way. And there should be some penalty for that.
Mm-hmm.
They can garner some form of penalty, monetarily or otherwise. And that should be something to be a deterrent for people doing this in the future. But if you've been here for 20 years and you've worked, you know, in this industry or whatever, and you're just doing your thing, yeah, I'm not saying you need to launch them back to their country of origin, but certainly the people that just got here, we need to look at that. And we also need to look at the people who, you know, are coming from some of these places that are not friendly to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Should be under definitely more scrutiny, in my opinion. Whether that's racially profiling or whatnot, whatever you want to call it, that's what we need to be doing, in my opinion. And there should be no apologies for that. You don't have a right to be here. It's not a right. But you know, there's often, and I mentioned it earlier, the military industrial complex, but it's a term that's thrown around, and you know, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual real thing that the President Eisenhower said, and he warned against in 1961 in his farewell address to the nation. And you know, if it's something that you haven't seen, you might want to look it up and hear what he has to say, because it's kind of the first time that any elected official, particularly somebody at that high level like the president, came out and spoke of this, you know, and he warned that it's going to be an influence that future presidents and future governments are going to have to try to navigate through. But there's always going to be this pressure from the military industrial complex to promote and further conflict for the reasons that, you know, it's being done.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a short clip from a guy who, I've played this guy before. His name's Andrew Bustamante, and he's a former CIA guy. He worked for the CIA for a number of years, he and his wife, before he decided to tap out for personal reasons. But he does a lot of interviews on different shows, and he's pretty open about different things within the agency. But he gives a fairly simplified version of, you know, what the military industrial complex is.
Explain to us
Scary stuff.
what the military industrial complex is and how the CIA plays a part in it.
So the short hard-hitting answer is that the military industrial complex is our economic security blanket. That's what it is. The reason that the United States loves war is because war ends recessions. Mm-hmm. And the reason that war ends recessions is because the military industrial complex spins up. Tens of thousands of jobs are made, massive government spending is made, people make a whole hell of a lot more money, more taxes is taken, and then all that military industrial produce, all the production, isn't just for us. It can be sold to the UK, it can be sold to France, it can be sold to Germany, it can be sold to Israel, it can be sold to
Now you
Saudi
have money coming in. Yeah.
And you have money coming in, and the people who are, when foreign countries buy American goods, what denomination do they use? What currency do they use?
American.
So then how do they get American dollars?
They got to buy them shit.
American dollars. And then as you buy American dollars, it takes American dollars off the market, which does what to the value of your currency?
Increases the value.
It's net. It's like a triple threat. It's like Justin Timberlake, man.
I mean, this is really well said.
So that's why the military industrial complex was designed. And it's a big part of the reason that Eisenhower warned against it.
Yeah, his speech when he left office.
Yep. It was like, once we create this beast, you can never put this back in a box. It's always going to be there, and it has contributed to our wealth over time. Yeah. It is the thing that China is trying to do right now. The thing China is trying to replicate is its own military-industrial complex, because it has watched us leverage it for economic and international gain for the last 30 years.
So, yeah, Tim Riley's right on top of it. It says the military industrial complex is the only thing keeping the dollar afloat. Yeah, it's one of the major contributors for sure. Yeah, we sell a lot of arms to a lot of our allies, like Ukraine, like Israel, like Saudi Arabia. You know, the warplanes, all of that stuff's coming from this country. And there's a, you know, I mean, if you work for Grumman, Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin, man, I'd be kind of stoked actually. I'm going to go out and buy myself something, and then I'm going to buy myself or my wife a new this, and I'm going to just be living fat. I'm part of the 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing well. So you're exactly right, Tim. So
What was that?
you know, sometimes the screen does weird things. I don't know. I'm going to kind of pivot here a little bit. And there was an outstanding interview. We happened to hear this while we were on our trip, and I just found it to be fascinating. It was such a good interview. And it was where Tucker Carlson was interviewing Ted Cruz. And I think this is going to be something that if you watch it, it'll prove to be well worth your time, because regardless of your political leanings, I think you'll find that this was just the kind of interview that the media should be engaged in with our elected officials. So often our elected officials are given softball interviews, or they're given the questions prior to showing up or what have you. And that's one of the things that the new podcast medium is so good. The long form interview, the long form conversation, you can really get a good sense as to what a person is all about. And well, maybe not all about, but you get them to say things that they wouldn't say if you were showed up on 60 Minutes or, you know, NBC News, where you're going to get a little 10-minute snippet that's kind of curated in essence, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a really, really good interview. I was fascinated by it. And the one thing that I hadn't really realized about Ted Cruz prior to this interview is that he absolutely has a high level, an unusually high level of commitment to the nation of Israel, which to me seems kind of like an odd position to take for an alleged conservative from the state of Texas. And so here's a little snippet from that I thought was kind of fascinating.
To Congress 13 years ago,
yes,
with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that.
I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period.
Okay.
Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. You asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which
Yes.
is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel.
You want to count how many questions you asked about? What about the Jews? What about Israel? What about
I
AIPAC?
never asked about the Jews. This has nothing to do with the Jews, whatever that means. This has to do with a foreign government. And once again, shame on you for conflating the two.
Yeah, that was a pretty back and forth interview. And I thought it was so good. I thought it was conducted so good. I think that Ted Cruz was a little bit unprepared for that amount of challenge from
Tucker, I would say, definitely got him all tripped up.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, it wasn't that Tucker was trying to do that. He was just trying to ask questions. And I think that that's what we need to see more of. But, you know, it's just interesting that we have this within our government. And if you were to look and to research who is getting contributions from groups like AIPAC, one of the Congress people that's another conservative that I quite like. I like her quite a bit. Nancy Mace. She's pretty fiery. But she receives a lot of money from AIPAC. And so when these legislators, they sit on these committees, right? Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm a this or I'm that. You know, they have a vested interest in developing policy and legislation and the direction for how things are going to be going toward a particular entity. And so when you receive money from that entity, you kind of owe them something in return when they provide money for your campaign. And so I didn't realize Ted Cruz was like this shill for Israel. I thought he was a Texas congressman.
Me too.
Right? I thought he was big on border control, and which I think he's probably that too. But, it makes you wonder, or it doesn't make you wonder. It makes you realize why they would stand and be caught on the House floor waving Ukrainian flags or wearing Ukrainian pins. It's like, dude, why are you wearing another country's flag? What's that all about? I'm surprised I haven't seen him wearing the little Jewish star. I think they know better.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just interesting to me how that's a thing now.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he said 12 years ago, this is what it's like, wait a minute.
I came to Congress is to be the leading defender of Israel. Well,
wait a minute.
What? I get it. I mean, I was always of the impression that they're our ally and they're a small country, and we don't want them to be bombed with all these rockets coming in, because they get that constantly. I'm not saying that they don't need to defend themselves, but what's wrong with a nation defending themselves?
Right. There's nothing wrong with them defending themselves, but
should there be the argument that if you can't defend yourself, maybe you don't deserve to be a nation? I mean, that's going.
Well, this is true. I mean, they can't defend themselves without having outside help.
Yeah,
that's us.
I understand their need for allies, right? It's good to have people you can work with, but
they can't stand on their own.
I don't think that they can. Now they're surrounded by countries that want to kill them. So, who's going to step to their defense?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the biggest contributor to that nation.
I would agree with you when you said the statement of how come Trump's not saying maybe they should be our 51st state.
Yeah, that's something I haven't heard him say.
Right.
He's big on that with Canada.
If we're going to help them out, then maybe they should be our 51st state.
Yeah, he hasn't said that one time, so that should tell you an awful lot as well, should it not?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't he say that?
I have no idea.
Yeah. So something to think about. Yeah. Bill Zegley says you can count on one hand members of Congress that do not have an AIPAC rep on their team. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're correct. I don't know all of the members of Congress, but I do know that that's what I've heard. And, it stands to reason. You certainly see a lot of people waving Ukrainian pens and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing that with AIPAC, but AIPAC's, they got deep hooks into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here's another little clip from that interview. Thought it was kind of interesting.
The question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. They talk with them. I don't know what they do.
But why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a foreign government...
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk with foreign countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working from Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know.
Okay.
So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, they're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government?
Yeah. So really, really, really good interview. If you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor and
It is entertaining.
Yeah, it's a good one. So let's do a quick pulse check, Rebecca. You and I on the presidency at this point. We're now 5 months into the Trump administration, and we're coming up to your 6-month patience threshold. What's the grade you're going to give DJT and why?
My patience is, I would say, growing a little bit thin. And so my grade is probably slipping on him. I mean, he is doing some things and getting some things accomplished, but I don't know if he's focusing on the most important things. And so I would have to say he's probably hanging around the C level right now for me.
Yeah, I'm actually a little lower than that. I think if you were to ask me, I'm probably going to be about a D plus, just because of I like a lot of the things that he has done, but the problem with the things that he has done is that it's low hanging fruit. It's easy to write executive orders. It's easy to just unilaterally do things. It's easy to go out and put up a flagpole in front of the White House. That's cool, man. I like a nice, beautiful flagpole too. But really, is that what the fuck we're doing here? I mean, how about taking some of your political capital and trying to, go after the people who actually are opposing some of the things that you said you were for, like going after the deep state, which none of that has taken place. I haven't seen one person be arrested.
Right. I would agree with that. I mean, there's so many that obviously have done criminal things and they should be behind bars.
Yeah, it's dead silent over there at the FBI and the Department of Justice. And so, those are things that are it's just not going away, right? Mm-hmm. It's great to go out and to write executive orders and to say, oh, I'm going to take women, I'm going to fight for women and, so that men aren't in their bathrooms and shit like that. And doing a lot of things from the standpoint of what needs to take place, but that's all stuff that needs to take place. What about the hard things? What about the heavy lifting? What about going after the Congress people and the senators who are opposing cutting government waste, fraud, and abuse? But that shit is on the back burner right now. There's a lot of things that could be put into law and things that could be made permanent, but none of that's taking place. None of those Doge cuts are being made permanent. That to me is like a travesty. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk put his political capital on there for that program, got that started doing a lot of great things. What's taking place now? And Trump, it's just unfulfilled promises. And maybe that sounds a little harsh at this point, but I'm a little bit frustrated. One could argue that this so-called passage that's getting ready to happen of this big, beautiful bill would be a significant legislative victory. But I think it's just one more sign that's really emblematic of what, both of his presidencies have been. He's been a very big spender. He hasn't been concerned with cutting the deficit in a meaningful way. Now, you could argue in the last administration, a lot of that was due to the things that happened during COVID. Mm-hmm. It happened right at the last part of his presidency. So I can give him some grace on that. But, you've got a mandate, man. You've got the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency, and you can't get jack shit passed other than a big, beautiful bill, which is just more of the same. There's a lot of things in there that are probably good. Things that I agree with, tax cuts and this and that, but you can't do it in a way that doesn't make this huge monstrosity that's going to add trillions of dollars to the national debt over the next 10 years. Because that's in fact what's going to happen. Trillions of dollars they'll be adding.
I guess I could understand. I guess I could understand the point where you have to spend money to be able to save money. But for right now, it just seems like there's the spending money and it's not converting back to saving and paying off of.
Right.
As far as putting people behind bars, you know that's going to open a whole can of worms when that happens. But I do hope that I guess I somewhat haven't lost faith in the fact that it will happen. But I think the timing has to be right. So I would love to keep that thought in my head. Like I said, my feelings are wearing a little thin as far as that stuff happening, but I still kind of have hopes that will happen.
So you're like Jesse Jackson. You want to keep hope alive.
I want to keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Yeah, I don't know. It's just every president passes huge, bloated, continuing resolutions and omnibus bills and all of this stuff that's both sides are very happy about. And I understand that both sides have to give and take in legislation, but can't we give and take where there's a bill that doesn't have a million fucking things in it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's this thick and hundreds of pages long, 1,500 pages long, with all this verbiage that nobody's really reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like the average person can't consume that. They're like, okay, great, we got tax cuts, but look at all this other bullshit that's like, we don't understand what it is. And so that's the problem that I have. It's more of the same. I don't hear anything about draining the swamp because Trump is in the swamp. He's a part of the swamp. And he's going along with the swamp just to get something done, just to make a deal, instead of saying, no, I got your ass into Congress. You're there because of me. We're going to do things my way. And the American people voted me in there for real change. And we're going to do it this way. And if you don't, I'm going to go after you. I'm going to target you. But one of the real character flaws that I think Trump has is his ability to turn on somebody that disagrees with him, that merely just disagrees with him. Case in point, and I think it's kind of sad that he's attacking one of the real true conservatives in the Congress, and that's Thomas Massie. I'm sure you've heard him bitching about Thomas Massie, about what a horrible person he is. And to me, that's a real problem because you know what? I could almost see him doing that to his own family member. If Don Jr. went up against him, he'd probably say, oh, he's a horrible guy. Yeah, he's low IQ. He's almost at that point. He'll do that to anybody. Maybe not family, but you know what? He'll say the nicest things about you, and then as soon as you disagree with his big beautiful bill, oh, you're a terrible person. And to me, that's a real character flaw. I want to believe the guy, but how can I believe it when I say, you know what, dude? You just said he was a great guy, and now you're saying he's low IQ and he's a piece of shit. He'll say anything. And that to me is a problem. So I don't know if you guys know anything about Thomas Massie. He's not from my state. The only reason I know about him is because I happen to hear another Tucker Carlson interview. Fantastic interview. I thought, oh, this dude is the real deal. He is legit. He's a real conservative that's living a self-reliant lifestyle. This guy is the real deal. And I first learned of Thomas, it's probably been like 2 years ago. I heard, maybe it's not been that quite long or whatnot, but this is a guy who's built his house completely off grid with timbers that he milled from his property, with stone that he brought and he hauled up from the creek. He's an electrical engineer by trade. And so there's some real genius going into the way he has designed his property, completely off grid, very much like Tag from Life Done Free, but like the next level. This guy is the real deal. And I strongly encourage you, like if you have some time to kill, just look that one up and see what this dude's about so you can know who this guy is that Trump is saying is a horrible guy that's low IQ. And I don't know, it's here's a little clip from Theo Vaughn. He was on the other day. What is going on with that?
I don't know. Want me to go turn the volume off?
I don't know whose phone that is. Is that mine?
I don't know if it's mine or yours.
It's about annoying. It's distracting me. Yeah, it's a stupid thing. Sorry, guys.
Oh,
Would you like turn the volume down on that or something? Were you going to say something? Anyhow, here's Thomas Massey. This was a little short clip from when he was on Theo Vaughn. I haven't actually got a chance to listen to this, but when I get some time, I'm actually going to pull it up and check it out because I like Thomas. He is from, I think, Kentucky. So good on you, Kentucky, for having a real conservative in Washington.
Congressman, and I don't have a job. I still got a house where all my own utilities are taken care of. It runs off solar, got a backup generator, got a well that I dug, and it just gives you the sense that, okay, the worst day in Kentucky is better than my best day in DC.
And this is you right here. This is you right here.
Yeah, that's one of my gardens, and there's some of my chickens clucking around.
Oh, yeah.
I built a mobile pen that moves with the chickens to keep the coyotes from eating them. Now, it's like a Roomba. Think of a Roomba with 50 chickens in it.
Okay.
Moving around in my yard. It runs on solar, collects rainwater, and it takes care of my chickens when I'm not there.
And what makes it move? How does that even work? Bring that up, Trevin. Can you get me so we can see what I'm looking at?
I don't have any footage of it on here, but I call it, so it first ran off batteries and a solar panel, and the batteries went dead, and I'm like, this sucks. I don't like taking batteries to a landfill, because I was trying to come up with a green way to raise chickens. So I figured out a way to do it with supercapacitors. There's no battery in it, and the supercapacitors never wear out, and I call it the Clux capacitor.
Is this kind of an example?
Yeah, that's what it's like, except mine moves itself. Mine's like a Roomba version that's robotic.
And so what is the point of it moving?
Well, chickens poop, and you don't want them walking around in their own poop.
Oh, yeah.
They also like to eat a certain amount of grass and bugs. And so this gives them fresh forage, and it keeps them out of their poop. They don't get disease. It fertilizes my yard. It mows my grass. Everything's all happy in the Clux capacitor.
I got to get a damn chicken, dude. Or a little batch of chickens. I got to get something. I almost bought my mom 2 goats, but for years, she's like, give me some goats. And then she didn't want it. She just has a problem with everything. But anyway, so what is a flux capacitor?
Clux capacitor.
Okay,
It's the circuit that I designed. So I'm a double E by training, electrical engineer by training. And I just had to come up with some way to keep my chickens alive and keep them healthy while I went to DC. So I came up with this circuit board that's got capacitors that trickle charge from a little solar panel the size of a sheet of paper. And it's got an automotive winch in the front, so it can pull itself even if it weighs 2,500 pounds.
Wow.
Along a cable.
So you don't pay an electric bill?
No electric bill, no water bill, no sewer bill. I do have an internet bill because I use Starlink.
Oh, yeah. And is that legal? Are you allowed to legally be a person like that?
Well, they tried to bring more regulation to our county 20 years ago before I was a congressman, and I wrote letters to the editor and mobilized people, and we stopped them from bringing more regulation to our county. So it's still legal where I live.
Wow, because it seems like a very libertarian, or almost like a lot of the ideas seem almost very like something you would see like on the Democratic Party, which sounds kind of wild, Oh.
Yeah, so that's Thomas Massey. And I like him quite a bit, but apparently Donald Trump doesn't like him because he's speaking out against wasteful spending, and he believes that that's what this bill represents. So he's going to talk shit about him, and he's going to talk shit about Rand Paul and anybody else who doesn't get in line with the big government spenders in Washington. So, again.
well, I would have to say, on the lighter note, I'm glad his Roomba works better than my Roomba.
Is yours not working well?
Doesn't pick up anything. Kind of does.
Okay. Yeah. One thing, I guess, to switch gears here again, enough talking about some politics there in Washington, but one thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately is artificial intelligence. Talked about it in recent episodes, but the reason why is because I'm not only hearing what's being projected for the future, but I'm actually seeing it kind of in real time. It's making dramatic steps, leaps and bounds technologically. And I just think that's going to continue to exponentially move forward. And, if we're fortunate enough to live for a number of years more into the future, I think we're all going to get a chance to see some very incredible things as it relates to that. And I think there's a lot of people who have, moral and ethical concerns as it relates to how AI is moving us into the future. But, honestly, I don't know if there's really much we can do about it, other than, choose to opt out if that's your thing. Some of you may know that Rebecca and I just bought a new car. It's a Tesla Model Y 2026, and it has full self-driving capability. I will say that is quite nice. It's pretty awesome. And maybe because you had brought something to my attention from your drive home yesterday, Rebecca. What was that?
So I was driving home. I set it on it's full self-driving supervised right now. That's where ours are at. So you can't like look around or whatnot, or it will eventually, after it reminds you to keep your eyes on the road and touch the wheel, will eventually shut down. But however, I'm driving. I have it set on the self-driving, and I happened to notice a deer jump out in front of me, and I had my foot just barely not on the brake, but very, very close to it. But I was also curious to see what the car was going to do. So my heart is pounding, and the car actually stopped, and I did not hit the deer. But the deer, if I wasn't paying attention, I would have hit the deer. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Now today, what I didn't tell you about is I had it on the self-driving. I was going to deliver eggs, and there was a cyclist on the side. And I normally kind of go around, give them their space. And I was thinking, well, he's riding on the side of the road. The car's not going to do anything. And it actually veered over and gave the cyclist a little bit of space.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting.
Right. I will say this, at this point, it's not perfected, but it's going to get perfected. There's going to be continued software updates that come through, and, it's just going to get better and better and better. But it is literally like not having to drive your car. And, technology is something that I guess somewhat was wanting to shy away from. But, I look at it in this way. I just think that it's something it's going to become ubiquitous in our society. And, you can either choose to opt out, or you can choose to embrace technology, because, everything that we use, quite honestly, is technology, right, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? Is it not? Isn't a pencil and a piece of paper technology?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it makes it easier. You don't have to chisel it into stone, right? You don't have to find a stone tablet and try to chisel it into that rock. You've got something that's it's technologically advanced from what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you this, because I was mowing the lawn and I started wondering, I thought, maybe I'll do a poll on this. I thought it would be an interesting poll, but I just never got around to doing it. And I was thinking, man, what would people say? Would they actually want to, if money was no object, would they choose to have a humanoid robot on their homestead to assist them? What would you want?
Being from the time that I have come from, it's not that I wouldn't want one, but it would take me a while to adjust to being comfortable with that, as opposed to, say, our grandkids, who that's all they're going to know.
Okay.
And move on. I'm used to doing things for myself. So to let go of that and let something else take over, that would be a huge adjustment for me.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's things that maybe you don't want to do, or you would rather not do at particular times, that you could have your humanoid robot actually do for you. So case in point, I got to mow my lawn. Takes me, if I do all of my lawns, about an hour and a half with my little walk behind mower. That's an hour and a half I could spend doing other things. That's a time commitment. It's a mundane, repetitive thing that I would just prefer actually some days not to do. Some days I don't mind it. But you know what? I could have my humanoid robot go out there and do that. I got a pile of wood still sitting out there that needs to be split. I could have the damn thing split all that wood and stack it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ashamed of that. I could find a million other things to do around here. There's always going to be things to do. And so I look at it in that way, because whether it's moral or ethical, I think is the other question. Because I think where people have a problem with it is that it looks kind of creepy. It looks like an actual human being. It's got 5 fingers. It's got arms. It's got, looks like a human being kind of, but it's, this plastic robot looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be to the point where you can put different things on them to make them with hair and latex skin and all that sort of stuff. That'll all be coming in the future. So I think a lot of people actually have a problem with this from the standpoint of moral and ethical. Do you think?
I don't disagree, but again, I think it would take. It's almost like a trust issue,
Mm-hmm.
because you're relinquishing control over an object that you're going to trust is going to, and over time, it's probably going to be smarter than you.
Without question.
So how comfortable are you with that? That's
the ethical and moral dilemma that most people are going to have to navigate through. But I think that there will be people who will have no problem with that. I'm at the point where if I could have one of those things, for sure I would. There's a ton of things I could get them to doing around here. 100%.
So do you think that you would be able to fill that time that you're having it do things, or would you actually become a lazier human being?
That's a good question. I might become lazier, but I would be filling that time with something that I actually wanted to do. I would be choosing to be lazier,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I would fill my time. Don't, there's no worry. It's not like I'm just going to lay in bed.
But I think that there are some people that would probably.
But there's people that do that now. See, I look at it like this. This isn't anything we've ever talked about, but I look at everything that exists right now as technology that didn't exist, and we're all consuming it. So if you have a problem with something like this from a moral or ethical standpoint, that's understandable. But you're coming at it from the standpoint of, I like doing things, but
it's not necessarily that I like doing things, but when we are doing things, be it work or at play or whatever, you are continuing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an aspect that would be taken away from you to a degree.
Vacuuming. That's something you want to do. Dusting. See,
I don't mind vacuuming, but when you have a vacuum that works.
Oh, I'm just saying. Just saying, like.
But dusting now, see, I could have one that would.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's just a thought is all, and I think that you're going to see a lot more of this stuff coming up. Tim Riley says, learn to use AI, or you'll be working for somebody who does know how to use AI. And when the auto drive does get perfected, we cave dwellers will have to pay $10,000 a month just to drive cars we're driving now. Let me think about that. Yeah. So you're thinking that it will be, and I thought this too, Tim, to be honest. I thought that the insurance companies would make it punitive if you didn't have this technology, because it's actually probably going to be safer than human error. There will be less human error because they're not going to be distracted. They're going to be, the self-driving technology only thing that they will do is focus on the road. They're not going to be looking at their cell phone or looking at scenery. They're just going to be doing their job, and it'll be safer in essence on the road. However, I will say this, that insurance is freaking through the roof for one of those cars. Like we're paying how much more, you think?
It is probably
Like
going
a
to.
third more? I'm not asking for money. I'm just saying, like, is it half again as much, or, a few $100s more, or what?
It is probably going to be in between a third and a half.
Almost double. So yeah, that's crazy. But let's see. Tim also says it won't be monetarily plausible to make money on the homestead without it. If you're just living on a homestead just to feed your family, you'll be able to do without it. Yeah, I don't know how this future thing's going to work. I still haven't wrapped my head around what Elon says here as it relates to how things aren't going to cost any money because things will just be free. I listen to what he says and I try to wrap my head around it and to make some sense of it. I don't discount what he says. He may have a very optimistic view of what the future holds from the standpoint of technologically, but I don't put anything past his predictions. I think he's probably somewhere in the range of the ballpark. But this is what he has to say about AI.
Probably AI could do anything better than a human can, cognitively. Probably almost, I think in 10 years, based on the current rate of improvement, AI will be smarter than the smartest human. Yeah. There will also be a massive number of robots.
By the way, I got to ask, how come your robots look so much like the creepy robots from iRobot? Was that intentional or just...
I was hoping he was going to say, yeah, just to mess with you. It's not meant to look like any prior robot. And we'll iterate the design. A lot of the robot parts are cosmetic. You'll be able to switch out the kind of snap-on cosmetic parts of the robot to make it look like something else if you'd like. Mm-hmm. So there will be ultimately billions of humanoid robots. All cars will be self-driving.
In 10 years?
In 10 years, probably 90% of miles driven will be autonomous.
Huh. Wow. That fast?
Yeah. In 5 years, probably 50% of all miles driven will be autonomous.
Now, if AI will be smarter than any person, how many jobs go away because of that? And what do people do if you've got millions of people that are losing their jobs? Like that, a lot of people are understandably freaked out about that.
Well, goods and services will become as close to free. So it's not as though people will be wanting in terms of goods and services.
So why is that? Why are goods and services free in an AI world or close to free?
Well, you have, I don't know, call it tens of billions of robots. They will make you anything or provide any service you want for basically next to nothing. It's not that people will have a lower standard of living. They'll have actually a much higher standard of living. The challenge will be fulfillment. How do you derive fulfillment and meaning in life?
Is Skynet real? Like you get the apocalyptic visions of AI. How real is the prospect of killer robots annihilating humanity?
20% likely, maybe
Wow.
10%.
On what time frame?
5 to 10 years.
So soon, like you see a world where that's possible.
Yeah, but I mean, you could look at it like the glass is 80 to 90% full, meaning like 80% likely will have extreme prosperity for all.
So your thoughts on that, Rebecca?
Again, I have to go back with, if the robots are doing everything for you and you have a lot of time on your hands, is that going to increase the crime?
Yeah, I think it will. I think, people are going to find ways to fill their time, and some people are going to do things that are criminal. They do that in today's society. There's plenty of people that are doing criminal things, whether it's
Right, but I can envision that actually increasing.
what I keyed in on what he said there that made a lot of sense to me is that the difficulty is going to be for people is to derive meaning in life. That's the scary part about it. If you think about it, like if everything is done for you and you don't have to lift a finger and you don't have to go out and earn a living, there's just going to be this abundance, so-called. It really takes away from people's desire for self-actualization.
Yeah. What is your purpose?
Exactly. A job gives you that. A job gives you meaning. It gives you purpose. And when you take that away from somebody, now, of course, there's going to be plenty of things that I could find that I don't want to do here on this property or that would assist me. It'd be just like having a helper. It'd be like having somebody come and work a few hours and help you do things. Plenty of people do that. They have day labor or whatnot to come and mow their lawn or to do some work that maybe they don't want to do, and they pay them for it, and then they leave. And this would be much the same as that. It's technology. It's like a sprinkler timer. Years ago, they used to have to water the lawn. They used to have to go out and move things, turn it on, turn it off. Now you just set the sprinkler timer and you can just let it do its thing. It's just technology. And you could do the same with this. It's just that it creeps people out because it looks like a human. Tim Riley.
I honestly think that it will eventually replace humanity. And maybe faster than we plan.
Yeah, that's the unknown, I think. And even the people that are in the know, like Elon, you heard him say, well, what's the likelihood of it actually, becoming sentient and taking over? And, he's uncertain as to like what the outcome of things are going to be. And there's a lot of people working on this technology. It's not just Elon.
So that's the creepy part for me.
Mm-hmm. Tim says, why do they have to be humanoid? Just make them like R2-D2. I've wanted one of those since I was a kid. Yeah. They could make them look less, like a human or whatnot. And maybe that would be less disturbing for people. But I do find it to be an interesting, thing to think about, because again, we're all going to get an opportunity to experience this right now. One of the things that, is out there, the use of these AI assistants like ChatGPT or Grok. And, if you're somebody who hasn't used any tools like this, maybe you're a boomer like us.
You are not a boomer.
I'm a Gen X, but barely. Just, the older generation, right? We're a little bit slower on the uptake on some of this stuff. And we're a little bit more resistant to like, oh, I'm not messing with that or what have you. But if you're already using search engines like Google or Bing, which is Microsoft's version, or DuckDuckGo, if you're already using that and you're not using these AI assistants, you're literally disadvantaging yourself by not using this technology because it's so vastly superior to anything. You basically talk to it. There's voice activated stuff. You can just push a button and actually talk directly to the thing. And it's a pretty advanced language learning model.
So I have to say, I actually thought that my husband was talking to our son because I could hear him arguing, and he was arguing with Grok and she was arguing back.
Yeah, it was an argumentative tab. You can select it to be argumentative. And I was, we were talking politics, and it was just kind of fun to see where it was going. And I would say it was holding its ground quite well. But yeah, it's something that, if you haven't checked it out, and you're not opposed to it for some other reason, certainly check it out. And I think it'll blow you away. It's going to become something. We've had this conversation, Rebecca, where it's going to be in dolls. That's the future for kids' dolls. They're going to have little dolls that'll have this shit in it. It'll be their own little personal assistant. You'll go into your car. You'll get into your car. You'll walk into your house. You can talk to it. And I'm not saying that I'm looking forward to that necessarily, because that is a little intrusive and a little creepy at this point. But that's just going to be the thing in the future. So in the not too distant future, quite honestly. Right. And what I'm referring to actually is what's called advanced narrow AI, which is the lowest level at this point. And there's two other levels above that. There's artificial general intelligence, which matches or exceeds human level intelligence. And there's artificial superintelligence. That's the highest level that they've projected. And that's basically, it surpasses human intelligence in all domains, basically intellectual, creative, social, and problem solving. So I don't know. It's just pretty way out when you start going down the rabbit hole of that, you know. And I being this conspiracy theorist, but this isn't a conspiracy. This is happening today.
This is happening, and it's happening faster than technology happened way back.
Oh, without a question. Yeah, it's gonna some people are gonna wake up one day and they're gonna go, oh, wow, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just gonna be there.
I mean, even in this car that we bought, it still takes me a minute to realize that I don't have to put a key in the ignition because there is no key.
Mm-hmm.
It's linked to my phone. I don't shift it. It's just a monitor that you slide it up or you slide it down. What I learned, I believe yesterday, is if I don't put it in park, say I park the car, but I don't put my foot on the brake and push the P for it to go into park, within 5 minutes, it says, your car has automatically been put on park.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't even have to put your foot on the brake or anything. It just automatically does that when you come to a stop. It's pretty.
Well, it does, but I've never had that message come up that it automatically put it in park for me.
Yeah. Tim Riley says, what will the peasants do, or what will we the peasants do? Work will set you free, but there's no work to do.
It's a very good saying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I guess I'm glad I'm living in these times, to be honest.
I would have to say that I am glad that I am the age I am living in these times. However, I know that, again, like for our grandchildren, this will be the norm.
Yeah.
But knowing what I knew back then and this being the norm and still having years to go, I don't,
A little spooky.
It's spooky to think about it now. I know that I would adjust to it over time, but it is kind of spooky.
Yeah, I'm not spooked about it. I actually am not. I'm actually embracing it because I know that there's really nothing that I can do to stop any of it. And again, why would I do anything to disadvantage myself from the standpoint of utilizing technology that exists to make my life better, more enjoyable, easier in some sense of the word. If it helps to, I guess, educate me, make me more well-rounded. I'm always looking to learn things. And so it's a tool that I can use to help facilitate that. You know, we used to use encyclopedias and those no longer exist. It's all, you can just kind of pull it up. Now, you know, the argument can be made that it's somebody else's data that's being inputted into the system, but you could say that about written text as well. You know, that's got a particular, hey, this is the truth, you know, and you're reading this.
Well, there's the social aspect too. I mean, when we were kids, there wasn't a TV in every, or at least in my house, there wasn't a TV in every room. There was a TV. The family sat down and watched together. We all sat down and ate dinner together. And that is getting farther and farther and farther apart.
Yeah.
And so that whole interacting with people and the whole social interaction is just decreasing greatly.
Yeah. I think Skane's girl said here that it goes hand in hand with why they are trying to decrease the population. Yeah.
I don't disagree.
I can't disagree with that because I know that certain people have those views, you know, and I can't disagree with that. So one of the things that Elon is also doing is he's got that company called Neuralink where they're putting implants into people. And again, this goes back to ethics of such things and turning people into something that they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're making kind of a half human, like half android or cyborg or whatever you want to call people. And I think if we go down that road in society, that's kind of a bridge too far for me. Not like a kind of a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far, but it's going to happen. It's just absolutely going to happen. And whether it's happening in this country or it's happening in China or it's happening in another place that has less of a regulatory framework in place, we can pass legislation where we're not going to do that here. But do you think they're going to do that in China or some other place that has the technology? So I do think it's good that people like Elon, who at least outwardly seem like he has an understanding of maybe the moral implications of some of the things that they're doing, but yet at the same time, he's actually doing some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here, take a listen to this clip. And this is about a visual implant that they're actually putting into people right now. And you can judge for yourself whether you think this is a bridge too far for you, or this is something you think, oh, that's pretty cool.
6 to 12 months, we'll be doing our first implants for vision, where even if somebody's completely blind, we can write directly to the visual cortex. And we've had that working in monkeys. Actually, I think one of our monkeys now has had the visual implant for 3 years. And at first it'll be fairly low resolution, but long term, you would have very high resolution and be able to see in multispectral wavelengths. So you could see an infrared, ultraviolet, radar, like a superpower situation. But like at some point, the cybernetic implants would not simply be correcting things that went wrong, but augmenting human capabilities dramatically, augmenting intelligence and senses and bandwidth dramatically, and that's going to happen at some point. But digital superintelligence will happen well before that. At least if we have a neural link, we'll be able to appreciate the AI better.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. What do you think of that? I kind of think that's going down that road of like merging technology with humans. And I'm not really so much in the favor of that. I think it'd be great to restore one's eyesight. Right. But,
Mm-hmm.
he's talking about, you could have even like $6 million man eyes where you're infrared and you're, multispectral zoom capability and plus all this. I don't know. It's just kind of weird, but that's where we're headed. So I can't not bury my head in the sand and just act like it's not happening, because it's happening. And people like Elon are projecting that this digital superintelligence is going to be here sooner rather than later. Some people like Elon who are optimistic about when this is going to take place, he's saying like by 2030-ish. And some people are saying like conservatively, maybe the year 2100, which none of us will be here. So we won't get a chance to experience it. Maybe that's for the better, but things are moving fast is all.
Things are moving fast. I agree. And I don't think that it's going to be vision where they're going to stop. I think it's going to be involving a whole lot more. They're going to go in and correct in the brain a multitude of defects
that's fine, but like you shouldn't create something that you weren't and then make you something into something different. If they can fix a problem, that's great, but where do you take it? But anyhow, I guess enough of talking about digital superintelligence, but I wanted to thank everybody for joining us tonight and stopping in. We've been on here for a couple hours, just kind of rambling on, sharing some thoughts with you guys. And we've hoped that it's stimulated some some interesting conversation or thought or debate. And I wanted to end, I guess, giving a little bit of a historical perspective on July 30th, or excuse me, June 30th. Not only it's the birthday of my favorite person in the world, but
I didn't know Grok was born on June 30th.
So happy birthday, Rebecca.
I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you dropping in tonight, buddy, and hope things are well with you and yours out in Tennessee. But here's that little tidbit of information that also happened on this date. So in 1971, the 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, which lowered the voting age from 21 to 18 years of age. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. And I think that was probably happened during that period of time. I don't know this for certain, but I just looking at the timing of when this took place in 1971, I think that had largely something to do with people who were fighting in the Vietnam War. Because at that time, obviously 18 years, you're being drafted, you're fighting for your country, you're getting shot at, you're being asked to do this heavy lift, but yet you weren't even able to vote. And so I think, from the period of when the war started, which I believe was around 64, 65, probably 65, and then I think it ended in 75, the official end of the war, but that's right in the smack dab 1971 during the Nixon presidency and that whole tumultuous period. Yeah. Interesting, no?
It is.
But anyhow, we hope you guys have a great week moving forward. We're going to try to get some things done around here on the homestead, doing some homesteady things, and we'll keep the right side up.
Yeah, I got to go out and visit my chickens again. It's time for them to go to bed.
Are you gonna sing them tunes? Are you gonna take them anything and take some apple or?
No apple this time, but they are going to get some chicken feed, and they will be happy about that.
Yeah. Anyhow, guys, thanks for joining us again tonight, and we hope to see you next week. Go out and try to make tomorrow better than it was today. And remember, homesteading is not harmful content. Unless you've joined us here on Porterhouse and Teal, and then maybe
it might be harmful.
It might be harmful for your tender ears. But anyhow, thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week.
You guys are awesome. Bye.